Good afternoon. You're listening to Ken Hudnall. This is the Ken Hudnall Show. Coming to you from our studios right here in exciting El Paso, Texas. Gateway to the Old West and the most haunted city in the country. Well, today is August the 28th. That is the 240th day of the year. Only 125 days remain in the year, so with holidays and observances. National Red Wine Day, National Bow Tie Day, Rainbow Bridge Remembrance Day, mourning the loss of your a pet, which can be a horrible experience. Radio Commercials Day, National Cherry Turnover Day, Crackers Over the Keyboard Day. I mean, you need to occasionally tip your computer keyboard over and tap all around it in order to see what kind of little crumbs come out from around the keys. Maccaton International Awareness Day. It's a moment that highlights Maccaton, a friendly way of mixing speech and hand signs and picture symbols so people can communicate. The day starts out with energy and warmth as families and schools and communities all come together. National Thoughtful Day, International Read Comics in Public Day. I've got all kinds of strange things happening this morning. National Power Rangers Day, Race Your Mouse Around the Icons Day, Crayfish Party, Be Kind to Humankind Week, National Fishing Month, Fiesta de Vino, that is a wine festival, celebrates Madeira's world-renowned wine. You can never have too much wine, you know. Red Valley, Belgian Beer Week, National Composites Week, Navasard, International Plum Fair. Famous people born on this date: Jack Black, Armie Hammer, Shania Twain. And with all this having been said, let's look at stories in the news. Well, we had another nut job go off with a gun at a Minneapolis Catholic school. It's being called domestic terrorism. 2 children were killed, and I think there were 17 that were injured. It was a Catholic school in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The shooter of a group of students acting during the morning mass been identified as a transgender by the name of either Robert Westman or Robin Westman. He was carrying 3 firearms, according to authorities: a rifle, a pistol, and a shotgun. Court records show Minneapolis juvenile by the name of Robert Westman had his name legally changed to Robin in 2019. The FBI Director Kash Patel confirmed the shooter had been born Robert, but identified as Robin. According to the mother, the minor child wanted to be identified as a female and wanted the name to reflect that identification. We've got all kinds of crazy people running around doing all kinds of crazy things. Well, the new director of CDC, Susan Linares, refuses to be fired. As a number of other officials are calling it quits, she refuses to leave her position as director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention after the Department of Health and Human Services announced she'd been removed from that role less than a month after she took the job. Her attorneys said they claimed she has neither resigned nor yet been fired. They released a statement on social media, claimed that the Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is weaponizing public health for political gain putting millions of American lives at risk. When CDC Director Susan Linares refused to rubber stamp unscientific, reckless directives and fire dedicated health experts, she's trying to protect the public, according to her attorneys. And as a result, she's been targeted. Well, MSNBC's new flag, Jen Psaki, has turned the church school shooting into an attack on prayer, according to the and Trump's D.C. crime crackdown. She is a host on MSNBC, and rather than doing something constructive, she blasted President Trump's D.C. anti-crime crackdown, and as well as the power of prayer, she reacted to a church school shooting in Minnesota. You know, a lot of Americans offer prayers for victims and their families and communities. But according to Psaki, well, that's a waste of time. She said that prayer's not enough. Prayers don't end school shootings. Prayers don't make parents feel safe sending their kids to school. And prayers don't bring the kids back. She said enough with the thoughts and the prayers. Well, then she followed up with another tweet. When kids are getting shot in their pews at a Catholic church, school mass, and your crime plan is to have National Guard put mulch down around D.C., maybe y'all rethink your strategy. I'm not sure what one has to do with the other, but in her mind, she's said something brilliant. And looks like we're heading for a civil war. The governor of Illinois has warned the President of the United States there'll be a response if National Guard troops are deployed to Chicago. I guess he'll put together his own private army and lead it to Washington. I don't know where we get these Looney Tunes. Well, American tennis player Taylor Townsend says she was told she doesn't have any class or any education by her opponent after she beat the opponent at the U.S. Open. The 25th ranked Jelena Ostapenko, 7-5 and 6-1 in her second round match at the U.S. Open. But then at center court, the two of them had a face-to-face confrontation. Ostapenko, a Latvian native who won the French Open in 2017, just went off on Townsend. How dare she beat her? She had no class and no education. Well, a country star ended this concert early after fans threw beer at the stage during his Oklahoma performance. Country singer Braxton Keith doing a line on beer throwing at his concerts. And then August 22nd performance. He ended this show after the concert goers started throwing not only beer but other things at the stage. He said, "That's enough, I'm gone." One American tourist was stabbed defending women on a German tram and has criticized immigration policies after the suspect was released. In a lot of places, even some states, if you're an undocumented immigrant, you can do as you please and walk free. This particular tourist was stabbed in the face while protecting two women on a tram in Germany. And he gave an interview about what he calls Europe's immigration problem. He said he believes the attack highlights Germany's failure to address immigration. He said he later learned that one of the suspects, a Syrian asylum seeker already known to police, was arrested and released by prosecutors, then arrested again. Another suspect remains at large. He said locals told him over the past 10 years it's been getting worse and worse and worse. And after that incident, thousands of people, especially women, reached out and claimed they hadn't been feeling safe on the trams or in their own hometown or even their own country. I mean, the rule of law is a thing of the past. Well, Carly Pierce just got divorced after 8 months of marriage. She said their marriage wasn't based on love, but on heavy lust. And she said she instantly regretted marrying Michael Ray. The two of them got a quick divorce. Well, the feds took down 27 suspects in a small town in New Hampshire. The folks arrested in the fentanyl and meth bust were tied to the Sinaloa cartel. DEA said Wednesday 27 people were arrested in Franklin, New Hampshire in a sweeping narcotics bust that seized fentanyl and methamphetamine tied to the Sinaloa cartel. The investigator said the supply chain traced back through Lawrence, Massachusetts, which is a city long identified as a fentanyl hub for New England. Crime is just running crazy. Well, Democrats are desperate that the MAGA cosplay is going to flop. They're in free fall after President Trump's 2024 landslide victory. And blistering New York Times report shows Democrats have bled voter registrations in nearly every state since 2020, losing ground while Republicans have gained 4.5 million voters. Democrat favorability hit rock bottom at a 3-decade low as we head into 2028. Instead of fixing their problems and their broken agendas, they're trying to mimic the raw, authentic, unfiltered MAGA energy that powered President Trump's comeback. But according to Bill Maher, of all people, voters aren't fooled. They want authenticity in results, not theatrics and empty rhetoric. And according to him, that's why the Democrats are going to lose again in 2028. Got another story on the Minneapolis school shooting. The shooter, as I said, was Robert Westman, who changed its name to Robin Westman. The 3 guns used in the shooting were legally purchased, according to police. 2 Catholic school students were killed, 17 others were injured. The 23-year-old attacker opened fire Wednesday during a mass welcoming students to the first week of classes at the Annunciation Catholic School. Chuck Schumer and his followers immediately went on an anti-gun tirade instead of an anti-lunatic tirade. They firmly support transgenders, but those evil guns have to be taken away. Well, a Kansas City officer was killed by a fleeing suspect while deploying stop sticks to try to end the pursuit. He was fatally struck by a driver fleeing law enforcement. The slain officer was 26-year-old Hunter Samancic, graduated from the department's academy in 2023. He was struck early Tuesday morning while deploying stop sticks on State Avenue in an effort to stop a driver who was fleeing law enforcement. Dennis Mitchell III, 31 years old, was accused of hitting the officer and is charged with capital murder, fleeing or attempting to elude a police officer, criminal possession of a weapon, and 2 counts of theft. Well, the incident began at about 12:30 Tuesday morning when Kansas City officers responded to reports of shots fired on Everett Avenue. And after hitting the officer, Mitchell wrecked at about 12:55 a.m. on Call Drive, and he was taken into custody at that time. Well, Sean Hannity has addressed some of the rhetoric coming out of the left after the school shooting. He said the left's rush to blame the Republicans for every tragedy is just getting pathetic. According to people like Psaki, the school shooting and all the others, direct result of President Trump's policies. Well, Ford has just recalled 355,000 trucks over a potentially deadly problem. You need to check and see if your vehicle's on the recall list. I had an issue with mine the other day, and They called and told me, hey, you know, you got 2 recalls that I'd never been notified about. And then they said, one's a preliminary recall. But, see, most of the vehicles these days are actually rolling computers. I can do more in sitting in the front seat of my truck than I can at the computer I'm sitting at right now. Well, according to a former FBI agent, D.C. politicians have kept chopping away at law enforcement, which paved the way for President Trump to be forced to put the National Guard to patrolling the streets. And the far-left policy surrounding crime have backfired, but the Democrats don't want to admit it because, of course, they can do no wrong. Well, in addition to the other problems that Cracker Barrel has, do you know I actually had a Pride page on the internet? It was launched as part of the rebrand fiasco. You know, people go to Cracker Barrel because they like the ambiance and the what's called comfort food. Unfortunately, these the folks that got control, many of whom spent their life in DEI, don't seem to understand that. And that's why they lost over $100 million in the value of their stock. They took, yesterday, they quietly removed the Pride page from the website. There's a lot of customer backlash over rebranding efforts. The website linked to Cracker Barrel's Pride page that used to boast the company was bringing the porch to Pride. Now redirects to its culture and belonging page. According to the page, at Cracker Barrel, welcoming people has always been at the heart of who we are. They take care of one another. We're able to even better care for the people who walk through our doors. Well, the last time I went to Cracker Barrel, we used to go every Sunday, but the last time I went, because of the way they had packed in everybody they possibly could, I wound up with pneumonia. So it's been a while since we've been there. Well, the mayor of D.C., I think her name is Bowser, has admitted President Trump's federal crime crackdown is actually working. Initially, she expressed fear that President Trump's plan was going to be a total disaster, but its clear success has actually made her change her mind. After President Trump announced his plans to deploy the National Guard and assume oversight of the Metropolitan Police Department in order to address the rising crime in D.C., she warned, with all the wisdom of a Democratic leader, such a crackdown is going to be unsettling and unprecedented. And now she says it worked. You know, when people know there's going to be a response to committing a crime, you don't see as many crimes. With the revolving door that George Soros has paid for, what's the problem? You need something? Go take it. Every undocumented immigrant needs a Louis Vuitton bag. There have been entire sections of commercial D.C. and Chicago and L.A. that have been cleaned out by looters. But that's okay because they're poor people who need what they steal. Well, Meghan Markle's been slammed by royal experts for her ludicrous pantyhose complaint. She claims there are inauthentic royal rules, but royal experts are saying it's just another one of her pity parties. Well, since lower income spending seems to have stalled, companies are shifting business focus to wealthy consumers. Bank of America data shows higher income spending growth at 1.8%. Lower income growth is at 0. So, like so many of the other institutions in this country, screw the poor and the lower middle class. Let's go help the rich folks. Well, NVIDIA CEOs admitted some jobs are going to go away amid the AI revolution. And, much as I hated to do it, I joined the AR education train. And there's a lot of interesting things under AI. Well, student archaeologists have unearthed some very unusual ancient heads that have strange smiles. One fascinating ancient head was found in a Scottish farm. Discoveries made at Scale Farm on the Scottish island of Rousey, announced by the University of the Highlands and Islands Archaeology Institute, July 24th. That site's part of a long-term research project at the Institute. The student, Katie Joss, was looking along a trench wall, and the head just stared right back at her. Yeah, let's see. If you want to cook like Gordon Ramsay, X-clad pots and pans are on sale 44% discount this Labor Day. Labor Day is Monday, folks. Well, great white shark sightings have risen along the northeast beaches as the summer winds down. Never know what's going to pop up. As far as the sharks are concerned, the beaches are buffets. Well, Zelensky is unhappy as Russian attacks killed 15 and injured 48 others in Kiev. Russia launched a large-scale attack overnight, killing 15 people, wounding 48 others, and damaging a lot of buildings. Zelensky said a child was killed in a drone and missile attack. He said right now in Kiev, first responders are clearing the rubble of an ordinary residential building after a Russian attack. Russia has chosen to go to their ballistic missiles instead of the negotiating table. Well, he's asking for all the other countries to get involved in putting Russia in its place. Well, everybody has got to get their 2 cents worth in about this shooting at the Minneapolis school. WNBA star Paige Buchers has called for tight gun control laws after Minnesota Catholic Church shooting. What's going to stop, in my humble opinion, indiscriminate shooters is knowing somebody's going to shoot them. Right now, had this individual not committed suicide, they'd have probably been given a slap on the wrist and sent home. Let's see. MSNBC guest made the comment, President Trump has the upper hand on crime over the Democrats. And I think that has ended our session on what's in the news. Well, yesterday, we ended up talking about, in our discussion of conspiracy theories, we were talking about the Kennedy assassination, John Kennedy, November 22nd, 1963. And according to the Warren Commission, which was created in order to calm the upset public, it was a lone nut gunman. This is the only country in the world that never has a conspiracy. Oh no, we have lone nut gunmen who managed to outthink the best security people in the world. And not only do we have John Kennedy's assassination, we have Robert Kennedy's assassination, Martin Luther King's, all took place during a short period of time, which basically changed society. And the Kennedy assassination, along with fears of government brainwashing, basically share a foundation in distrust of powerful institutions. And those who believe multiple conspiracies might say might say the same groups behind JFK's death also developed secret chemical programs like MKUltra. And of course, brainwashing research is used to keep the public in the dark about major crimes or events, including high-level assassinations. Well, turning from political assassinations, there were even a lot of conspiracies that rose up about the music world. I remember growing up, there was a record put out by the Beatles, and according to the story, if you played it backward, you heard the group saying Paul is dead. Now, was it? No. But it got a whole lot more people following the Beatles to find out who killed Paul. You know, music fans around the globe have often wondered about the lives of their favorite stars. Sometimes these wonders become elaborate conspiracies. And two of the strangest rumors in rock and roll history is that Paul is dead, which is a claim that Paul McCartney died and was replaced by a stand-in, and the theory that Elvis is actually alive. He faked his own death and is a preacher in Mississippi. And I've heard that preacher sing, and he sounds for all the world just like Elvis. And the preacher's name is an alias that Elvis used to use. Now, talking about the Paul is dead conspiracy, in 1969, rumors spread among Beatle fans. Word got out to Paul McCartney, the band's bass guitarist and singer, secretly died in 1966. According to the story, the Beatles covered up his death to keep the band alive, replaced Paul with a lookalike named either William Campbell or Billy Shears. The rumor just came to be known as PID, for Paul is Dead, emerged from supposed clues in Beatles songs and album artwork. Now, it all started when fans noticed oddities in the Beatles' album covers and the lyrics. Radio DJ in the U.S. got a tip about hidden clues that Paul had died in a car crash. That DJ spoke about it on the air, leading thousands of curious fans to investigate the Beatles' music and record sleeves. Rumor gained momentum with newspapers running headlines like, "Is Beatle Paul McCartney dead?" Even though Paul was clearly still around doing interviews, the rumors took on a life of their own. Now, there were several pieces of evidence that believers pointed to. Number one were the album covers. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club's Band, that came out in 1967. Fans claim the word Paul is spelled out by flowers on the cover, or that a hand placed over Paul's head in the picture hints at death. Then there's the Abbey Road album from 1969. This famous crosswalk photo shows a funeral procession. John is a preacher wearing white, Ringo is the mourner in a black suit, and Paul is the corpse, barefoot and out of step. And of course, George is the grave digger, wearing denim clothes. Paul's also holding a cigarette in his right hand, though he's left-handed, which some takes as a sign of the stand-in. Then in the song Revolution 9, that's the one, if you play it backward, you might hear the words, "Turn me on, dead men." In normal play, it's just abstract sound collaging, but believers claim these reverse phrases were no accident. Strawberry Fields Forever ends with what some fans think is John Lennon saying, "I buried Paul." Lennon later stated he was actually saying cranberry sauce. Oh yeah, the two easily mistaken, don't you know? And some fans use old photos to claim that Paul's face shape or ears changed drastically after 1966. They think plastic surgery or photo editing might hide the imposter's differences. And Paul McCartney himself has joked about the rumor many times. In a number of interviews, he dismissed it, saying if you're actually gone, he wouldn't be speaking to him. Duh. Experts in photography and forensic note that changes in camera angles and lighting and age can alter appearances. Friends and family also confirmed that Paul's always been the same person. When the Beatles parted ways in 1970, Paul continued a successful solo career and formed the band Wings, all of which would be very challenging for an imposter to manage so convincingly. And despite the clear evidence that Paul McCartney is alive and well, some loyal believers keep analyzing the Beatles' discography for hidden messages. That's a study of records, don't you know? The story remains a famous pop culture oddity. Younger generations sometimes rediscover a rumor and share it online. While most folks see the Paul is Dead story as amusing, it reveals how fans can read deep meaning into music and artwork. Now, of course, one that fascinated a lot of folks I know is the story about Elvis. Elvis Aaron Presley, often called simply Elvis, died in 1977, 42 years old, found unresponsive in his home in Graceland in Memphis, Tennessee. Official reports attributed his death to heart complications, worse than by prescription medication. And of course, millions of fans mourned. But soon after his funeral, a rumor emerged that Elvis faked his passing to escape fame, debt, and threats. It came out later on that his own manager, Colonel Tom Parker, actually misappropriated quite a lot of Elvis's income. Now, various odd details about Elvis's final days led to a lot of suspicion. Some visitors to Elvis's funeral claimed the body in the coffin looked waxen or artificial. There was a belief that might have been a wax figure in the coffin. And the name on the tombstone reads Elvis Aaron, A-A-R-O-N Presley, spelled with two A's in his middle name. Elvis often used the single A-R-O-N. Believers think this slight difference means the tomb is not truly his. And in the months following 1977, numerous people claimed they saw Elvis at gas stations and diners and traveling under different names. One of the first sightings was in Kalamazoo, Michigan. A local newspaper ran a story filling the idea that Elvis had gone underground. For a long time, I heard it said that he was managing a Burger King in Kalamazoo. Tabloids printed images of older men who vaguely resembled Elvis. Some stories said he joined a religious retreat, entered a witness protection, and was living quietly in a small town. Well, some folks note that Elvis did have a deep interest in law enforcement, collected badges, and even worked with police in various roles. They think he used these connections to forge a new identity. Fans point out that Elvis was unhappy with intense public attention and health struggles. Faking his death might have given him a way out. Well, skeptics highlight the simple fact that Elvis's health problems were very real. He had a long history of drug prescriptions, weight gain, and stress. Family members and doctors agreed that these issues contributed to his passing. Law enforcement officials reported they couldn't see any indication he entered any protection programs. Over the decades, suspicious claims about Elvis's sightings have been dismissed as pranks and hoaxes or mistaken identity. And there's also the matter of DNA test. In some cases, people who claim to be Elvis or to have Elvis's hair were tested, and these did not match Elvis Presley's known DNA. Medical records, plus testimony from paramedics who align with the official story, make it clear that, in all likelihood, the figure buried at Graceland was in fact Elvis. And the more straightforward view is that Elvis's death was sudden and shocking, but it wasn't staged. Well, like the Paul is dead idea, the Elvis is alive story has become part of pop culture. It's joked about in movies and television and comics, often showing Elvis as an older man living in secret, longing for simpler times. Graceland, which is now a museum, has seen countless visitors over the years. And some fans still quietly hold out hope that Elvis lives, waiting for the right moment to reveal himself. The story also connects to a wider pattern of celebrity rumors, suggesting famous figures might slip away from the limelight. And there was as I said earlier, there was a preacher in Mississippi who looks like him, sounds like him, and a lot of people say is Elvis. I don't have any DNA testing results on that yet. Supposedly there was DNA tests done, but I can't find any results to it. Now you might ask yourself why these theories flourish. But both Paul McCartney and Elvis Presley are iconic figures. Fans can feel a strong attachment to their music and personalities. And in the face of shocking or sad events like a rumored death or an actual passing, a lot of folks refuse to believe the truth, leading to adopt an alternative theory that keeps the star spirit alive. Paul is dead turns everyday album art into a hidden puzzle. While Elvis is alive keeps the King's legend growing indefinitely, and it certainly helps the bottom line on the record sales. Well, when these rumors surface, media outlets often jump on them, especially if they involve big names. In the late 60s and 70s, tabloids grew in popularity and sensational stories sold very well. I remember the National Enquirer. He said they checked and double-checked all their stories, and if they said it, you could believe it was true. Reported Hillary Clinton had an alien baby. And since she's a cousin of mine, I always wanted to meet my alien cousin. Well, today the internet amplifies even the strangest ideas. A single post or video can spread globally, reaching fans who, for various reasons, find the notion appealing or intriguing. And once a rumor starts, it sticks around for decades. And a lot of people enjoy the idea that there's more than meets the eye to what goes on. They might comb through records or interviews seeking secret hints left by a star. They might believe that a popular artist will do anything to escape the burden of fame. I mean, they fight and they scratch and claw their way to the top and then regret the fact that they got there. These mindsets add fuel to theories like Elvis is alive. Maybe fans find comfort thinking their idol's still out there somewhere, safe and happy and hidden. In some cases, official accounts of events do contain inconsistencies. But that might be due to human error or incomplete information or private family matters. But these small mistakes are read as major clues by conspiracy-minded fans. And if a death certificate has an odd detail or a photo looks off, that gives rise to stories of grand cover-ups. Rather than accepting a tragic end, fans turn to a more dynamic storyline. Well, let's talk about Tupac. Supposedly he had a secret hideout. Now, we're also going to talk about a strange story that's been around for years about the Titanic. And they're two seemingly unrelated conspiracy stories that share a common thread. They suggest that major events didn't happen as we believe they did. Now, some people claim that Tupac Shakur, a famous hip-hop artist, is actually alive and living somewhere hidden, having staged his passing for personal freedom or to flee his enemies. And others argue that the Titanic, that legendary ocean liner, was switched with its sister ship before its tragic sinking in 1812. At the bottom of these stories are questions about hoaxes and insurance fraud and personal safety. Official accounts say Tupac was shot and the Titanic sank after hitting an iceberg. If these conspiracy theories we're going to talk about are correct, we need a rewriting of history. Now, Tupac Shakur was a widely influential rapper and actor. He was shot in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas, Nevada, September 7th, 1996. And according to the official story, he died 6 days later at the hospital at the age of 25. Now, this crime has never been fully solved, though gang rivalry and personal conflicts are often cited as factors. His short but intense career and the mystery around his final days made him a legend, leading some fans to believe he's still alive. Well, not long after his death, rumors circulated he'd faked the entire event to escape legal troubles or potential retaliation. People point to the lack of official photos of his body and unusual quickness of his cremation. They claim various lyrics in his songs hinted at plans to disappear, especially references to resurrection or Machiavelli, a stage name he sometimes used, inspired by the Renaissance thinker Niccolo Machiavelli. Machiavelli wrote about faking one's death to fool enemies, which of course fueled theories that Tupac followed that advice. There's been proof cited by believers to prove that Tupac faked his own death. Now, he had a large volume of unreleased recordings, and several albums actually came out after he died. Fielding talk, it was still in recording. In reality, a lot of artists have leftover tracks or incomplete demos that are later finished off by producers. Occasional photos appear online, supposedly showing Tupac living in a new identity, often with a new name or location in the Caribbean, in Cuba, or Malaysia. Critics note that these pictures are usually blurry or even fake, and with AI, they could have George Washington walking down Pennsylvania Avenue. And some of the cryptic lyrics in his songs allude to returning stronger, but many rap lyrics use symbolic or aggressive language. Fans who think he's alive interpret these lines literally. Well, police documents and witness statements from the night he was shot present a grim scene. He sustained multiple gunshot wounds, required urgent surgery, and couldn't recover. Close friends and family members confirmed his passing. Conspiracy supporters claimed the funeral and the official accounts were staged. Investigators found no evidence that doctors or nurses or law enforcement took part in a massive cover-up. And for the theory to be valid, large numbers of people would have to lie or stay silent for decades. Now, Tupac's influence remains huge even today. Some artists named him as a prime inspiration, referencing his music and activism and style. Tupac is a live story. Keeps his name alive in a different way, blending myth with reality. People who see him as a rebel or a visionary might prefer to think he escaped the violence around him. But his family and estate managers consistently confirm that he is dead. The sightings pop up every few years, showing how strongly fans hold on to the idea he might return one day. If he did, I think it'd be a major shock. Now, turning to the Titanic. The RMS Titanic sank April 15, 1912. Hit an iceberg during its maiden voyage from Southampton, New York. More than 1,500 lives were lost. Titanic was owned by the White Star Line, part of the International Mercantile Marine Company. Alongside Titanic, White Star had other large ships. Well, as I was saying before I had to deal with the peanut gallery, the Titanic was owned by the White Star Line. They also owned a number of other large ships, including the RMS Olympic, an older sister ship. It had a few incidents at sea and needed a lot of expensive repairs that weren't covered by insurance. Well, some folks believe the Titanic was switched with the Olympic before making that final trip. According to this conspiracy theory, the Olympic had been damaged in an earlier collision, and to avoid heavy financial loss, White Star Line, or its parent company, disguised the Olympic as the Titanic. Not only to sink the Olympic intentionally and claim massive insurance payouts, this theory claims that the Titanic continued to sail for many years as the Olympic. Now, you might ask yourself, why did anybody go to the trouble of making such a swap? Well, financial troubles. Some folks say the Olympics' damage created a big financial strain on White Star. By swapping the ships, the line could scuttle the damaged one under the Titanic's name, collecting insurance money to cover cost. They didn't anticipate colliding with an iceberg. They planned to sink it some other way. And those who support that theory often mention small design differences between the two ships and claim these vanished or appeared on the Titanic right before its ill-fated voyage. And they also ask why certain wealthy or well-connected passengers canceled at the last minute, and a number of them did. Other evidence presented by supporters of this theory revolves around the porthole count. The Titanic and the Olympic had slightly different arrangements of porthole. In some pictures, legends show Titanic in 1912 having the same porthole pattern as the Olympic. And some believe the interior layouts were switched or partially changed so the older ship would appear new. Crew members might have noticed the differences, but supporters say they were bribed or threatened into silence. And the Titanic's captain, Edward Smith, also commanded the Olympic at times. Theorists see this as further proof the lines between the two ships were blurred. Maritime historians and many experts strongly reject the switch idea. According to them, swapping two nearly identical but large ocean liners would be extremely difficult and very expensive, I might add. Thousands of workers built and maintained these ships. And hiding such a switch would require huge secrecy and relabeling of every detail down to lifeboats and fittings of official documents. Titanic was insured for less than its actual cost, meaning the White Star Line wouldn't actually get enough money to fix its losses from the Olympic. And the wreck of the Titanic was found in 1985 at the bottom of the Atlantic. Investigators had spotted the yard number 401 on parts of the ship, matching Titanic's original yard number from the Harlan and Wolff shipyard. The Olympic had yard number 400. These details stand out as proof that the sunken liner is actually the Titanic. And despite the evidence, that theory persists. Much like other conspiracy theories, the Titanic switch story feeds on suspicious coincidences, incomplete insurance records, and the fact that the sinking was a major catastrophe. People find it intriguing to think that one of history's most famous disasters might have been planned for profit. Documentaries and books and online forums continue to debate the matter. However, mainstream researchers point to physical remains and historical documents and the improbability of keeping thousands of workers quiet as reasons to doubt any swap took place. Now, both theories involve significant disbelief in a lot of the accepted facts. For Tupac, it's the official account of a violent shooting in Las Vegas. For Titanic, it's the reports of a doomed maiden voyage. People who support these ideas often say the media and powerful interests hide or distort the truth, and certainly I have seen many stories distorted by the so-called mainstream media. In regard to Tupac, some folks think he wanted freedom to record label conflicts and from record label conflicts or gang pressure. And if he escaped, he could live unbothered. Regarding the Titanic, supporters proposed the ship swap was all about insurance money. And in both cases, the quest for financial or personal security is central to the rumor. Well, in regard to Tupac, there's a lack of official photos. There was the quick cremation of an unsolved crime. And during my many trips to Las Vegas, I couldn't find any indication there was any investigation going on. In regard to the Titanic, gaps in insurance documents, changed passenger lists, and subtle ship design differences raise questions in a lot of people's minds. When official records leave holes or appear contradictory, conspiracies flourish to fill these gaps with alternative narratives. Now, a large portion of the public has a strong feelings one way or the other about Tupac, who was seen as a voice for his generation. Similarly, the Titanic holds a timeless emotional pull because so many lives were lost in a tragic, dramatic way. An emotional weight can make alternative theories more compelling. People want to believe something bigger, or they feel the story is too simple or suspicious as it's normally told. And even long after these events, new clues keep turning up. A photo of a person resembling Tupac might surface, or a new documentary might highlight small anomalies in Tupac and the Titanic's engineering. Online communities dissect these details item by item. Each time, skepticism meets with unwavering belief. And this cycle fuels the theories and keeping them alive in discussions and interviews and sometimes mainstream media. Well, from there, let us turn to the Mandela effect. In our everyday lives, we rely on memories to keep us or to help us understand the past. But sometimes different people recall events in ways that don't match what the record shows. And this leads to confusion and jokes or deeper questions about reality. Two topics that relate to these puzzling experiences are the Mandela effect and the alleged device known as the chronovisor. The Mandela effect describes when large groups of people remember something one way and evidence shows it was always another way. The chronovisor is said to be a secret machine that lets people see past events. Both ideas push us to think about whether time is set or if there might be hidden means of changing or at least viewing history. Now, The Mandela effect refers actually to collective false memories. The phrase Mandela effect was coined by Fiona Broom about 2009. She realized that she and others remembered Nelson Mandela, South Africa's famous leader, dying in prison in the 1980s. Even though a lot of people believed that it happened, it never happened. He was freed from prison, went on to become president, and passed away in 2013. But countless individuals were sure they recall seeing news coverage of his funeral decades earlier. And this mismatch between personal recollection and actual facts sparked the idea that maybe something else was going on. Well, the Mandela effect occurs when a group of people share the same inaccurate memories of an event, a name, or a detail. It's not just confusion between similar items, but in a real sense, reality is shifted and that somehow recall an alternative timeline. People often say, I'm sure it was spelled differently, or I remember a scene in that movie that just isn't there now. And over time, these shared false memories have formed a list of examples posted across the internet, which of course fuels debate about how they were raised. You've got the Berenstain or the Berenstain or the Berenstain Bears. A lot of people are certain the children's book series used to be spelled Berenstain. In reality, it's always been Berenstain. We've got the logo, which features the cornucopia behind the fruit on the Fruit of the Loom underwear. But official records and images show no cornucopia was ever part of that design. I remember seeing that design 50 years ago. Some individuals remember the cartoon series as Looney Tunes. If you look at old clips and official merchandise, apparently it's always been spelled Tunes, T-U-N-E-S instead of T-O-N-S. And then we've got movie quotes. People recall lines differently than they truly are. One instance is in regard to Star Wars. Luke, I'm your father. The real line is, no, I am your father. Another is mirror, mirror on the wall from Snow White. The actual words were actually magic mirror on the wall. Now, these are just a few items in a long list that keeps growing as more people share their false memory experiences online. And it's interesting to note that these false memories don't appear with just one or two people, but with millions. Now, there's been a number of explanations proposed. One group of believers suggests the Mandela effect occurs because our reality merges or slips between parallel timelines. One timeline, a brand name or historical event spelled or occurs one way, but in a different timeline, it's changed. Supposedly, some people retain memories from the older timeline. And another idea is that we live in a simulated reality and the Mandela effect is a glitch in the program. Whenever the system is updated or changed, certain details shift and some minds remember the prior version. And psychologists often say that the simplest explanation is that people misremember things. Our brain can mix up letters, assume patterns, or be influenced by common mistakes repeated around us. And this type of confabulation is common. Group repetition can make the same error widespread. Well, researchers in memory science point out that the human mind is not perfect. We fill gaps with assumptions or rely on cues from others, leading to mass false memories. And the more a mistake is shared, the more it can feel correct. And brand names, logos, and quotes can change slightly over time, adding confusion. For example, a marketing campaign might update a slogan and fans might recall the older version or actually mix the two together. Difference here is that with the Mandela effect, people report the confusion as if they are certain it was always the other way around. And even the best explanation is a simple slip in human memory. The Mandela effect highlights how unreliable our minds can be. It also shows our longing for mysteries. Some people find comfort or excitement in the idea we might be living in a world with alternative timelines or hidden coding. And others worry that widespread acceptance of false memories can blur the line between fact and fiction. Either way, the Mandela effect invites us to examine how we process and store information and actually addresses broader questions about reality itself. Now, for the Mandela effect, let's talk about the chronovisor, which is said by many to be a window to the past. And while the Mandela effect deals with changes or perceived changes in what we remember, the chronovisor conspiracy suggests somebody built a machine to directly view past events. Early 1970s, the Italian priest by the name of Father Pellegrino Ernetti claims to have helped construct a device called the chronovisor. According to Ernetti, it allowed users to see and even record major historical events like the ancient Roman performances or biblical scenes. The chronovisor supposedly used electromagnetic and sound waves to tune in the vibrations left behind by events in time. Ernetti claimed that important human actions leave an energy footprint that can be assessed, much like a TV signal, if you have the right equipment. But it is suggested top minds helped build the chronovisor, including Enrico Fermi and Werner von Braun. There's no solid record of these figures ever working on such a machine together. The story appeared in a magazine article showing a photograph that Ernetti claimed was an image captured of Jesus Christ during his crucifixion. Later, that picture was found to match a postcard of a statue in a church. Now, his claims have been mostly discredited, but some still believe the device is real. And the concept of peering into the past has been fascinating for centuries. If you could watch real events from thousands of years ago, you could solve history's biggest mysteries. For example, did certain biblical stories happen exactly as described? How do lost civilizations look? This device also have a major potential for personal and political gain. Imagine seeing your ancestors or confirming a disputed event. If this machine is real, it would revolutionize archaeology and historical study. Well, Ernetti never produced the machine publicly, nor did he show verifiable footage of past events. And a supposed photo of Jesus was revealed to be from a statue, causing a lot of folks to dismiss the entire claim. The idea that all events leave a trace can be dialed up like a radio station conflicts with mainstream physics. Energy tends to spread out, and you don't see known phenomena that let us listen into the past. Now, some conspiracies say the Catholic Church hid or destroyed the chronovisor to prevent disruption of religious faith. Critics found no real proof of such an action, but the rumor continues because it adds mystery and drama. And although the chronovisor is not exactly a time travel machine, more like a time viewing device, it overlaps with the broader conspiracies about secret experiments to manipulate time. Some claim governments might have built on Ernetti's work. They link the chronovisor to Roman programs like the Philadelphia experiment and other hush-hush tests covered up that we've discussed in earlier shows. And the notion is that official groups want to keep time-related technology under wraps. Well, on that note, we come to the end of today's show. We'll be back tomorrow. And once again, you'll be listening to Ken Hudnall, the Ken Hudnall Show. Until then, have a truly great evening.